Guard, part-time soldiers who until recently saw themselves only as citizens, and now they're troops in a hot spot. 2 weeks ago, Tom Jarrow put some faces on some of these citizen soldiers from central Tennessee. They let us into their lives during their emotional last days and their final hours at home. We got to know Joyce McConnell, a mother of 2 young children, often fighting back tears. And we got to know Jackie King, an idol to his wife and 3 loving sons. They and all of the 251st are now in Saudi Arabia. And tonight, Tom picks up the story of those who serve.
This is the Saudi Arabia we are now most familiar with. Awesome armies face to face, poised with weapons of mass destruction.
Left, over there!
These are the front line and front page warriors. But they are only a fraction of the total force of 230,000 U.S. servicemen and women deployed in Saudi Arabia. In this prolonged confrontation, National Guard units have been called to provide vital support services for these frontline troops. The 251st is just such a unit. When we last saw the 251st Service and Supply Company from South Central Tennessee, they were trucking to Fort Campbell, Kentucky for 3 weeks of intensive training.
I want 32 people on that bus, and that's all.
First Sergeant Jackie King had shed his police chief's uniform for combat fatigues and was giving orders as the top sergeant.
Company. Fast pull. Please, Sergeant, take charge of people.
Joyce McConnell, our mother-turned-soldier, now practiced for a chemical attack. She faced a tough Army requirement for getting into full protective clothing in just 8 minutes.
Zip it up.
The nearly 200 Tennessee men and women, civilian soldiers, were taught about combat weapons with live ammunition drills. Then it was off to Saudi to play their part in Operation Desert Shield. They flew the Atlantic, enjoying hot meals, cold drinks, and 4 movies aboard a chartered commercial airliner, and wound up here, temporarily based closer to the sea than the Saudi desert. The air trip put them in Saudi Arabia weeks ahead of their heavy equipment, shipped slowly by sea. So they camped and waited, and faced the harsh reality that here they were no longer hometown heroes. They were just a tiny unit lost in the inevitable confusion caused by the biggest military buildup since the Vietnam War. The 251st was just one of 4 companies packed into an open-sided warehouse, which covered an area nearly the size of a football field. 1,000 soldiers were crammed together on folding cots and sleeping bags. Joyce McConnell now found herself bunked right in the middle of a mass of humanity.
First thing you think about is home, you know, and think, my God, how did I get into this?
There's no privacy.
None.
How do you change clothes?
Under the covers.
Slip in your sleeping bag and squirm around?
Right. Looks obscene, but it works.
There was not exactly a welcome mat waiting for the 251st. For 2 days, there was no hot food available. The guardsmen survived on the Army's MREs, combat rations packed in plastic.
You can put this water with this, and they swell up and get real soft, and they make peaches.
Ironically, this laundry unit was forced to wash their own clothing by hand. Their heavy equipment was still somewhere at sea.
Thinking about how nice it would be if I had a washer and dryer. It's amazing how you don't appreciate the things you have until you're in a situation like this.
Most of the available public telephones were broken. It took 4 hours of waiting online to reach the one that worked, so the folks at home could hear the latest news from Saudi Arabia.
The food ain't fit to eat. Everybody's getting diarrhea and getting sick. And we're crammed in there in a warehouse, crammed in there like sardines, living in there with the pigeons. It stinks. But other than that, everything's okay.
Nobody had promised them a tea party, but morale was sagging when they realized this would be home for at least a month. As the 251st set up a daily routine, small things became very important. Private Dana Whitten, a 21-year-old college co-ed, was forced to halt her classroom studies by the guard call-up. To ease through the transition, she enjoyed long, leisurely walks across the docks to the field showers. In her definitely non-military attire, Dana could kick back and feel like a co-ed again.
It's the highlight of my day, just to get over here and take a shower and relax for a few minutes.
Dana quickly found she was living in a highly religious culture where the faithful pray 5 times a day and women must be fully covered in public. A military order was given to Dana to cover up. No more shorts while outside. After a week of sitting around, members of the unit took field trips to see units similar to their own in operation.
Right now, we know the generator.
They visited a regular Army unit from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Jackie King listened incredulously as the sergeant divulged valuable trade secrets for keeping the washing machines running.
You know, you got to jimmy rig it, you know, you can use Coke cans and everything else with it, you know, to make it work. It'll work, but how long it'll work, that remains to be seen, you know, save you water.
Joyce McConnell was dismayed at the mounds of dirty laundry and at the news that this unit alone had already processed 70,000 bags, a task she would soon be facing.
Ain't no use in looking down. Honey, honey. Ain't no discharge on that ground. Hey, hey. Ain't no use in looking down. Ain't no discharge on the ground. Honey, oh,
Back at the warehouse on the docks, the long, hot days stretched into weeks, and the 251st waged a battle of their own with boredom. Top Sergeant Jackie King, presiding from his desk, handcrafted from discarded shipping crates, became the central figure in managing the constant complaints. How challenging is this new job for you as far as being on active duty?
It's been a tremendous challenge. It's a lot rougher than it is at home. Every problem we've got comes through me before it goes to come to commander.
Are you enjoying it?
Well, it's something to do. I mean, it keeps me busy. Time's going by real fast.
That's more than a lot of guys are saying.
Right.
But Dana Whitten didn't share the sergeant's enthusiasm. She sought solitude on the jetty rocks. You did join the National Guard. You did accept the terms of joining. I mean, this is just the price you pay, isn't it?
To tell you the truth, if I knew then what I know now, I would have never joined up. I wouldn't have. I have pride in my country and everything, but my experience so far has been really, really terrible.
Are you demoralized? Are you feeling sort of down and out because of being here?
No, not me. No.
Tell me how you feel.
I feel great.
Do you have a sense of commitment as far as why you're here? To preserve oil fields, to stop a dictator?
I fully believed in the reason why we were called over here. But I'm afraid it's kind of diminishing. You know, with the conditions, it's hard to be motivated. I know regular Army people are probably more used to these type of conditions. They're in it full time. The way I look at it, maybe we don't have a right to complain, but we're not used to it. We're part-time people. We have regular jobs and regular, you know, things going at home.
Gary, Rochelle, Bobby Davis, Weaver. Wait a minute, Weaver.
I believe that's it.
Jackie King. Clover.
Tennessee, Tennessee, there ain't no place I'd rather be. Baby, won't you carry me?
Jackie, as far as home and thoughts of home, what are you missing most personally?
Well, I miss all the basketball games for one. The boys are playing this year. My oldest boy, Jay, he's a senior. Rod, well, he's a junior. They really play good together, and I'm going to miss watching them play ball, that's for sure.
I'm sure they miss you not being there.
Yeah, I hope so, because I sure miss them.
Is your family going to be able to hold together with Mama gone?
I think so. They're very strong, and it's hard. It's going to be very hard.
As this military face-off in the desert is written and rewritten by American and Iraqi leaders, the 251st Service and Supply Company must wait in the wings, unsure of the final role they will play. Whatever happens, no one will escape unchanged. Their only comfort is in thoughts, lovingly inscribed on a page. These are the lifelines that hold the families together.
Dear Tim, Makisha, and Chad, hi. I love you and miss you very much. I know you can't quite grasp what's going on or why. All I can tell you is that I'm very sorry to have to be away from you. How's school going for you both? You know how I feel about your studies, so work hard and do well.
Dear Mom, I hope you are having a good time, just for right now anyways. All I want to say is I love you, and I hope you come home soon. We are still praying for you. Your daughter, Makisha. From Chad. He says he loves you, but is a little...
Makisha and Chad, I want you to know that when I joined the Guard, I didn't expect to have this situation happen. I thought by going into the Guard, I could get a good education, a nice job, and we could be able to afford the things we wanted out of life. But I realize now that what you needed most was me, my love and my care. I pray that someday you'll better understand the situation and the reasons for my joining the National Guard, and who knows, just maybe you'll end up being proud of me. Tim, babe, please take care of yourself and my babies. Hang tough and pray that I'll be home soon. I love you all. Joyce.
Oh, boy. That may be even rougher on people who aren't part of the regular military.
Really service, yes.
Are they going to be called on for another 3 months, do you think, Tom?
Hugh, they went over on a 3-month hitch. They all are reasonably sure they'll be there for 6 months. They do have a provision to extend them rather automatically.
But between the cultural differences and restrictions and the uncertainty about when they're going to get home, that must be very tough.
They're so isolated, too. I mean, they don't get away from this one port area. They don't get into town. They don't have any recreation time.
And there seems to be a lot of chaos, too. Is it more chaotic for the Guard?
I think there is, because the
Guard,
they're very upset at the way the regular Army has integrated them in as regular Army forces. They feel the timing was poor, and they haven't really been looking out for them.
Well, we sure wish them the best. Thank you, Tom.
I still have a few tears, so change of scene. Coming up, a young man whom everyone seems to agree.
Brave words, but most members of this unit would probably consider them overly optimistic.
If it comes down to it, I believe we're prepared, and I think we can do a good job.
Use of force just hours away at 11 o'clock tonight, Nashville time. Amid the last hours of the countdown, France is giving up on diplomacy, saying it's time for war. President Bush isn't saying if he'll order troops to attack tonight, as 2 Guard units leave for the Gulf, possibly headed to war. We'll look at how Metro Police are guarding against terrorism and at fears of some Arab Americans that they're considered an internal threat, plus a check on pump prices.
But first, even as the clock ticks toward confrontation, Tennesseans are still shipping out to the Persian Gulf. News Channel 5's Lisa Gottlieb joins us now from Waverly, where a lot of people found out firsthand today about the fear of war. Lisa?
Chris, the emotional roller coaster is running at full speed tonight here in Waverly, Tennessee. People here weren't just faced with dealing with the country being on the brink of war, but they were also faced with the stress of having to deal with a loved one or a family member having to leave for Saudi Arabia. For Linda Glasgow, this is a time of uncertainty. Her son, 19-year-old Jeff, left this morning from Fort Campbell with his Army National Guard unit. The men and women of the 155th Engineering Company are on their way to the Middle East to make runway repairs and build roads as part of Operation Desert Shield.
He'll be in the back with the equipment and everything, but it's still scary. Today's technology, anybody can be hurt at any time, and it's hard.
His father says his son was in good spirits when he left today.
I feel like they'll be all right. They're well trained for what they do, and you know, one never knows for sure.
The 140-member company is based in Waverly. The city has a small population of about 3,500, but there's nothing small-scale about the people's feelings for the 155th, and ribbons and signs all over town prove it.
The 155th was loved very much in this town and county, and it was disappointing to see them have to go. But I think they'll do a good job, no doubt about that.
Those we spoke with support the unit, and most support President Bush, but they're all frightened of what a war will bring.
I think about the lives that might be lost over there, and it's really scary. I worry about all the people that's over there.
It's just something that just makes you feel kind of empty right here.
The only thing that seems to be reassuring to people here is knowing that the 155th is a construction unit and should be far removed from the fighting, but as Linda Glasgow stated earlier, in war there are no guarantees.
Lisa Godley, thanks for that report. Vicki?
In the area, 1st Army Reserve Unit and the Waverly-based 155th National Guard Unit. Most of the troops were nervous because of the uncertainty of the situation. Most believe they will soon be involved in war.
I hate to say this, but it looks like it. I hope to God it doesn't come to that, but every thing you see sure points in that direction.
The 401st is a 265-person unit that is one of only 5 in the nation that set up and run POW camps. The 155th is a 150-person engineering company that assists other units on construction projects.
Tonight, in at least one Middle Tennessee city, there is growing support for what, to some, looks inevitable: war. Carthage, Tennessee is home to a U.S. senator who voted for the war resolution, and it is home to dozens of soldiers in the Middle East. Vanessa Eccles reports that many townspeople are squarely behind the senator and the soldier.
From the barber shop on Main Street
I'm afraid it's going to be a mess.
to Norma's restaurant on Highway 25.
I think you ought to go ahead and blow them to faces.
The Tuesday talk in Carthage is war. The National Guard Armory is now an official military installation. The unit based here sent almost 200 soldiers from Carthage and Lafayette to Saudi Arabia. The signs of support are all over town.
50% of them were people were crying.
L.B. Carter owns the barber shop and is a World War II veteran who says America has given Saddam Hussein too much time and too much warning.
I don't believe they can blow those people away because they've given too many signals and too much time to dig in. He knows what's coming. If I were coming to your place and whip you, I ain't going to call you and tell you I'm going to come over there and give you 6 months to get ready. I mean...
Diners at Norma's restaurant are staunchly behind their hometown senator, Albert Gore Jr., who voted for the resolution authorizing military force.
Well, there's no doubt that it will be a bitter war, and there's no doubt I don't think that many Americans are going to lose their lives. But at the same time, you've got to remember that history does repeat itself, and this is the very thing that brought on World War II.
Norma Ash says war looks inevitable now, and she wants action soon.
Yeah, it makes you kind of gets to you because you think of that. But like I said, there's a lot of our people over there, and it gets to you when you think of that they may be coming home in a box.
There is anxiety in the conversation in Carthage as a small town that sent dozens of its residents to the Middle East watches with the rest of the nation to see what happens after midnight. Vanessa Eccles, Channel 4 News.
Desert Storm. It happened in Waverly, Tennessee, home of the 155th Engineering Battalion. They're just part of the National Guard team from Tennessee. Today, even the very young were part of the more than 3,000 people who packed this gym at Waverly Elementary to show their support. Kenneth Ross's son is in Saudi Arabia, and he shared part of a recent letter he got from him.
If anything should happen to me, remember, I love you both very much. I hope to meet both of you in heaven.
And this little girl drew a great big round of applause and a few tears. What a voice she has, and one of our viewers got that video to us, so thank you very much. Definitely.
Yes, and by the way, Cheatham County Schools will
be there today.
A huge crowd out here, and everybody's having a great time. And the message today is very simple and very direct. This is good old-fashioned red, white, and blue American patriotism, a show of support for our soldiers serving in Operation Desert Storm, and an opportunity to communicate with those soldiers through letters. All the folks here not related to servicemen serving in Operation Desert Storm are being encouraged to adopt a soldier and write them to let them know that the folks back home have not forgotten about them, that they are indeed supporting their efforts in the Persian Gulf. Channel 2's Mimi Bliss has more on Operation Desert Star.
Keep looking up. When life knocks you down, get back up.
Former Oak Ridge boy William Lee Golden opened the show with Keep Looking Up. He hopes the song lifted the spirits of the military families at Centennial Park.
It's a positive song. It talks about when we get knocked down, you know, and we got to get up and keep looking up.
Thousands of people turned out to hear the music of big-name country stars and to show their support for the troops. Myrna Loy Stokes has a son serving in Saudi Arabia. She says she's touched by the show of patriotism.
I think it's wonderful. We got a picture of William Lee Golden we're going to send our son. He fixed it for him, so we're going to send that to him.
Operation Desert Star began only hours after the deadline for Iraqi troops to leave Kuwait had passed. Dorothy Gambrelli's husband is in the Gulf. She says the timing could not have been better.
It's a great moral support for the families and for all the nation.
Operation Desert Star is not only offering support for the families here at home, it's the beginning of a letter-writing campaign to the soldiers in the Gulf. Volunteers handed out the names of more than 3,000 soldiers. They found more than enough people willing to write letters.
We're asking to take one.
Corey Houston adopted a soldier. He knows the mail will be appreciated.
I think that it'll comfort them and all, and when they're all worried and things like that.
Postcards already in the mail, spreading the message of Nashville's Operation Desert Star to the troops in Saudi Arabia. Mimi Bliss, Channel 2 News.
And as we said, more than 10,000 Nashvillians and folks from all across Tennessee and throughout other states came to Centennial Park today to take part in Operation Desert Star. Many of them family members of soldiers serving in the Persian Gulf. What you're hearing now is the beginning of the finale of Operation Desert Star. Johnny Cash, the legendary country performer, gave a rendition a little earlier of the Grand Old Flag. It brought people to their feet. He was in his traditional black outfit, took off the black and had on the desert camouflage fatigues that many of the soldiers are wearing as they take part in Operation Desert Storm. That, too, brought a crowd to its feet, waving American flags left and right, as you can see.
Church Choir.
On the stage now, as the finale continues, it's going to be about 45-minute finale, culminating with songs and prayers, is the Christ Church Choir. Let's listen.
Give me information. Information. Give me long distance. Long distance. Give me hair.
It looks like
Operator, information, give me Jesus. Operator, information. Information, please give me Jesus. Hold the line, oh, operator, information.
You have no monitors.
members of the Christ Church Pentecostal Choir, 160 members strong, taking part in the finale here at Operation Desert Star. They're going to be singing several songs. The first, Pray for Peace of Jerusalem, There Is Hope. And as they continue now, let's listen to the Christchurch Pentecostal Choir.
Information, tell me why. Well, Mama used this number when I was very small, and every time she dialed it, she always got her call. Operator, information, please, I got my Jesus on the line.
The Christchurch Pentecostal Choir performing here at Operation Desert Star. And as the finale continues, a little later, Governor McWhorter will be on stage, and accompanying him will be Mrs. Martell Souder. Now, she is the sister of Captain Paul T. Johnson. You may remember, a few weeks ago, Captain Johnson was involved in a daring rescue of a downed pilot behind enemy lines. He is from Dresden, Tennessee, the hometown of our governor. So Mrs. Souder, Captain Johnson's sister, will be on stage a little later to talk about her brother's activities in the Persian Gulf. Another song now from the Christchurch Choir as they continue on stage in Operation Desert Star's finale.
A man who'll raise the shield of faith, protecting what is true. Whose love is tough and gentle, a man whose word is sure. God doesn't need an orator who knows just what to say. He doesn't need authorities to reason him away. He doesn't need an army to guarantee a win. He just needs a few good men. Not afraid to stand up for the truth. Enlistment lines are open, and he wants you to come in. He just needs a few good men. And all the praise
Christchurch Pentecostal Choir in Operation Desert Star. Also taking part in the finale, the Tennessee State University Marching Band. There will be a 21-gun salute, remarks from the governor. And as you can probably tell, it's starting to get dark here. These multitude of folks here have all been handed candles. There will be a candlelight vigil of sorts, and the people will wave their candles and be singing God Bless America as the finale concludes. We'll be back in just a moment.
Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.
Nashville artists, including George Jones, Minnie Pearl was here, Johnny Cash, along with several others, including right now the Christ, 60 members in that choir. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
And as we part, don't allow your heart to fail. I'll come again for you one day. Just keep your eyes looking to Jerusalem, and as you rise each day, don't forget to pray. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of the world. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of the world. Pray for Jerusalem. Pray for the world. Pray for Jerusalem. Pray for the world. In the east, in the cradle of the world, lies a jewel desired of kings. And even though it's just a diamond in the rough, there will come a time when its light will shine. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of the world. Pray for Jerusalem. Pray for the world. Pray for Jerusalem. Pray for the world. Pray for Jerusalem. We have got to pray for the world. You and I must pray for Jerusalem. Pray for the
Now, the latest from the Persian Gulf, briefly, that we know so far is that Allied bombings have increased at Iraqi targets, apparently as Allied forces begin a preparation for a ground war. At the same time, there are diplomatic dances going on in Moscow and Washington and at the United Nations, especially late word today that apparently the foreign minister from Iraq has agreed in principle to President Bush's demands for withdrawal. We will know more about that later, and there will be more on that in a few minutes on NBC Nightly News. We'll have more on Operation Desert Star for you tonight on the scenes at 6 and 10, as well as on a special report, Operation Desert Star, a special at 10:30. That is on Channel 4, following the scene at 10. And we will be with you then. Until then, I'm Stephen Lynn, live at Centennial Park.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Christchurch Choir. It is now my distinct honor to present to you the Commander-in-Chief of the Tennessee National Guard, the Governor of the state of Tennessee, the Honorable Ned McWhorter.
Let's listen to the governor's remarks.
And quick trip home. Come home soon. Thank you very much.
Governor Ned McWhorter thanking all the people who took time out today to come here and take part, to be part of Operation Desert Storm, and also to thank the families here. Many families, as we said, are here from servicemen who are serving in Operation Desert Storm. They came here. They were the special guests of this whole operation today. And as you hear now, we told you a little earlier, Martell Souder is being introduced. Now, she is the sister of Captain Paul Johnson, who we said a little earlier was involved with a daring rescue behind enemy lines. Let's listen.
Plane. It's called the Warthog. And the day that the first prisoners of war were shown on TV is the day Paul went into the Iraqi desert with another A-10 and flew for 8 hours looking for a Navy pilot who was crashed in the desert. They refueled several times. They found that pilot, and they waited and protected him while an Apache helicopter came in to rescue him. But he had to do something else first. As they were waiting, an Iraqi truck started coming toward that pilot. And so with their guns on their A-10, they shot the truck, blew it up, protected that pilot as he got on that helicopter, and then they returned back to base safely.
As a symbol of our hope for peace around the world, Governor McWhorter now has a candle. And with this candle, Martell will light hers. And those family members in the audience who have the candles, we ask that you sort of point yourself out. They will go through the audience and share the lighting of the candle.
Candles have been handed out to all of the members of Servicemen's family. They're going to be lighting those candles. As that goes on, all the entertainers that took part in Operation Desert Star today will be gathering on the stage, and they will be performing a little bit later as the band plays the national anthem. As you heard Mrs. Souder talk about the rescue behind enemy lines by her brother, that pilot, a Tennessean from Dresden, Tennessee, pilot of an A-10 Warthog. He was not the only Tennessean involved, because during that 8 hours that was going on, his plane was being refueled by members of the Tennessee National Guard refueling group out of Knoxville, I believe. So many Tennesseans took part in that brave rescue of a downed pilot behind enemy lines. The folks you are seeing lighting their candles, the folks with candles here, are all family members of soldiers serving in the Persian Gulf, serving as a part of Operation Desert Storm. As we said, 10 to 12,000 people is the estimate, the folks that came out to Centennial Park today, and more than 1,000 of those are said to be relatives of servicemen serving in the Persian Gulf. It's been a very happy day, even despite the fact that the day started out a little gloomy, because this, of course, was the deadline for Saddam Hussein to get out of Kuwait, 11 o'clock our time. He did not get out. President Bush said he was very disappointed, but if that's the way it's going to be, then the Army would have the authority to do what is necessary, and that probably means a ground war.
For the national anthem, a 21-gun salute will be fired to the Tennessee National Guard to honor our members of the armed forces serving in the Persian Gulf.
Tennessee State University Marching Band will now play our national anthem. On stage presenting the colors of 125th United States Army Reserve Command. Tennessee State University Marching Band performing the national anthem, which you're hearing in the background, a 21-gun salute to our servicemen in the Persian Gulf.
Salute from the Tennessee Army National Guard headquarters. We invite all of you to stand and sing along now as we sing God Bless America.
The Tennessee State University Marching Band and the Christ Church Pentecostal Choir singing God Bless America. 10,000 or more folks here in Centennial Park, many of them family members of soldiers serving in Operation Desert Storm. On the stage, Governor Ned McWhorter, country legends Johnny Cash, George Jones, many of the other entertainers who took part in Operation Desert Storm today. A very successful event. John and Kathy?
Thank you, Bob. Bob, I think...
Or names of soldiers that could be adopted by folks if you wanted to write them a letter. 3,000 servicemen's names were put on those stars, and what we were told was that all of those names have been taken, and the hope was that these servicemen would get letters of encouragement, just letters from folks at home to let them know that they haven't been forgotten. Apparently that was very successful.
Bob, how is it that everyone there seemed to have a miniature flag? I guess that's not a coincidence.
It's quite loud here, John. I think what you asked was about the flags, and I think 10,000 small American flags were handed out to the folks as they entered Centennial Park. Everywhere you looked around this crowd, people were waving flags. Many brought their own flags with them, but we also saw the small miniature flags that were handed out to the folks as they entered the park.
Bob, you've been out there all day. How are the military families doing?
Surprisingly well today, especially when you consider what happened today, that we thought that maybe peace would happen, but it didn't. It looks like the ground war is going to happen sooner or later. Many of the family members we talked with were really pleased about this event, pleased that the show of support is taking place. A little crestfallen, I guess, because they want their families to come home. But now it looks like it's going to be a little while longer before that happens.
Bob, thanks very much. We'll check back with you again in a few minutes.
Thanks,
and we'll have more news after this.
Work can change bad luck. When times get tough, you gotta keep looking up. We've been happily married about 2 years when the plant closed down and moved from here. Our first baby was due any day, and it took every penny we saved. Mary Ann said, honey, what are we gonna do? All I could say, there's only one way we'll get through. Keep looking up. When life knocks you down, get back up for another round. Faith and hard work can change bad luck. When times get tough, you gotta keep looking up. When my problems are many and my answers are few, I remember these words I've heard my whole life through. Keep looking up. When life knocks you down, get back up for another round. Faith and hard work can change bad luck. When times get tough, you gotta keep looking up. When life knocks you down, get back up for another round. Faith and hard work can change bad luck. When times get tough, you gotta keep looking up.
William Lee Golden performing Keep Looking Up. We'll be back to wrap things up here from Operation Desert Star after this. Our crowd, 10 to 12,000 folks, showed up here at Centennial Park today, and organizers could not have asked for a better show of support for our troops serving in Operation Desert Storm in the Persian Gulf. As we leave you tonight, we leave you with the performance of Bailey and the boys as they perform From a Distance. Have a good evening.
And from a distance we all have enough, and no one is in need. And there are no guns, no bombs, and no disease, no hungry mouths to feed. And from a distance we are instruments playing in a common band, playing songs of hope, playing songs of peace. They're the songs of every man. And God is from a distance. And from a distance, you look like my friend, even though we are at war. And from a distance, I just cannot comprehend what all this fight is for. And from a distance, there is harmony, and it echoes through the land. And it's the hope of hope, it's the love of love, it's the heart of every man. And it's the hope of hope, it's the love of love, it's the heart of every man. And God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. Oh, God is watching us, God is watching us, God is watching us from a distance. Thank you very much.
You are the strength of America. We're with you every day. You're the pride of Tennessee. Let your colors wave. You are the strength of America. You keep our dreams alive. You are the strength of Tennessee. Channel 2 is on your side.
Want him going in, but I really think that it's time, and I think that eventually we have to go in.
If I saw that this country was doing something wrong, I would want this country to change it because I love this country.
There were the uniquely American arguments about how best to love America.
How do you feel about this?
I think you're focused.
How do you feel about
I think you're focused too much on that.
It's the heartbeat all around the world.
While the drums of war stirred in the desert, Stuart Morris and dozens of others drummed for peace.
As far as I'm concerned, supporting the troops is trying to get a ceasefire and stopping the bombing, stopping this war, bringing them home alive.
Stand up and defend our state today.
The desire to bring American troops home alive is not lost on Jennifer Schmidt. Her son Philip serves with the 82nd Airborne, also on the front lines.
Freedom's worth fighting for. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Worth dying for?
Absolutely. My son's prepared for that. I may not be quite as prepared for it, but I'll know it was for a good cause.
I mean, I'm supporting you.
The cause was very much in debate here this afternoon, and so too was its future effect. No one on either side of the debate can yet say what toll a ground war will take on American troops or America.
Music for Operation Desert Star. You saw a little of that in our newscast earlier. It was a tribute to the U.S. forces in Saudi Arabia. Jeff McAtee is at Centennial Park on what was a beautiful day, and he joins us now live with more. Jeff.
Oh, Cynthia, it was just a spectacular day here in Centennial Park. It's been busy. Thousands of people were just jam-packed, crowded around the Parthenon for a day of prayer and patriotism and unity. The event was a salute to the fighting men and women in the Persian Gulf and to their families. Just moments ago, those families held a candlelight vigil. Flames were passed from person to person, symbolizing unity and symbolizing hope. Hope that their loved ones will be safe in the days and weeks to come. We have 2 reports now on Operation Desert Star, beginning with Stephen Lynn.
It may look like a normal outdoor concert, but it isn't. These aren't normal times.
He was haggard and gray, and he walked with a limp.
The event is called Operation Desert Star. It's to support Operation Desert Storm, more specifically to support the soldiers fighting it and their families back home. It's an afternoon of stars and stripes, of patriotism and pride.
I don't think it's a party, but it is a festive in that way that we're here to celebrate the support of all of our troops, and so in that way it's festive that we're showing.
They say music is the way humans express their spirit and soul, the way they express what's truly in their hearts, behind the face of everyday life. If that's true, then Mark Colley's music says it all.
21 guns to stars and stripes.
That's a song that I wrote, never thinking of it as a song. It was just an emotion I had to get across, to express in a song, and never thinking I'd have a chance to perform it.
The song is about his father, who was disabled fighting World War II. It could also be about his brother, who has just been called to fight the Gulf War. It could also be about any of these people's brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers fighting in Saudi Arabia.
That song says that how proud we are of the men and women who have served this country.
Stephen Lynn, Channel 4 News.
This is Carlos Bain reporting. Some of the families of the U.S. soldiers poised for the ground battle came to Centennial Park to see how much support there is for the nation's son and daughters in the military. Dale Klossner volunteered to help out at the Adopt a Soldier booth. Dale's son Jeff is 40 miles from the Kuwait border. She says being a part of Operation Desert Star has made this deadline day for Iraq's withdrawal a little easier to handle.
I feel like I'm just helping a lot of people. Plus myself. Plus myself. Because I see I'm not the only one that's in this. It's a whole bunch of people. So I'll do what I can.
Hundreds of people waited patiently in line to get a chance to adopt soldiers to fight in Saudi Arabia. Many of these folks don't have relatives in the military. However, they still feel a close connection to the troops.
I mean, we here to support them and that God will be with them. And I hope to see them when they come home. And I know they will be home.
The Klossner family hopes that kind of letter will get to Jeff. His sister Tanya says her brother needs words of encouragement now that a ground war is close at hand.
I think he wants to hear that they're wishing that they could come home and that they're praying for him and supporting them and everything, you know, and that they hope they get home really soon.
Words of comfort from here at home and from the front lines don't stop the concerns brought on by a mother's intuition. Marjorie Nance's son Kenneth is on the Kuwaiti border. At this point, she says all she can do is wait and hope.
And all of his letters say, don't worry, Mama, don't worry, Mama, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right, don't worry, I'm taking care of myself. He goes on and on and on and on, saying that. And by him saying that, I know that he knows I've got something to worry about.
The letters being written to Marjorie's son Kenneth and Dale's son Jeff will be rushed to Saudi Arabia. Postal officials say the letters should be delivered to the soldiers within 7 days. At Centennial Park, Carlos Bain, Channel 4 News.
Now, today's crowd also included a small group of protesters. About 12 people showed up carrying signs and peacefully calling for an end to the war.
Well, some of them family members, some probably don't like us, some probably have very mixed feelings. I think a lot of the other people probably maybe don't have a lot of interest in what we're trying to say, but you know, this is our way of supporting the troops, and we feel in a deeper way than just listening to some nice songs. I mean, we feel that it takes more responsibility than that.
For the most part, Operation Desert Star was a peaceful and non-political show of strength and show of support for the troops. The turnout today was absolutely terrific. The spirit was overwhelming. Tonight at 10:30, Channel 4 will present highlights of Operation Desert Star, and you won't want to miss it. Cynthia?
Thank you, Jeff. A lot of special feelings shared at the park today. Laura?
U.S. troops were also honored today at a rally in Goodlettsville. That story and more about the war after this.
God bless America, land.
Nearly 100 people gathered in front of City Hall to hear speeches and patriotic songs. Representative Bob Clement was on hand, and he said he's pleased these type of rallies are being held.
Goodlettsville, the salute at Centennial Park are all very beneficial to show our support, and I know the troops really appreciate it. I'm sure those 50,000 that we lost in Vietnam are appreciative and saying God bless America and God bless for our troops and the Persian Gulf.
We'll be right back with a look at the weather.
Our conversation took place 4 days ago in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The only thing you have to know, and you'll see why, is that this commander-in-chief of the Allied forces in the Persian Gulf likes to be called the Bear. And he doesn't care if it's a teddy bear or, as the enemy now knows, a grizzly bear. General, these men are with you all the time?
They're with me 24 hours a day.
He's guarded day and night, even in his own headquarters. We're several stories underground. The location is secret. Security is a joint responsibility, Americans and Saudis.
The American members of the team have rotated, but the Saudi members of the team have been with me for 7 months now. And they take very, very good care of me.
He lives and works in this underground cloister. During the war, he told me, he rarely saw daylight. His most intense work was done at the end of this hallway, where security was at its tightest. This is the war.
And this is the war room. This is where it all happened.
This is the first time General Schwarzkopf has allowed a camera crew to tour his war room.
I would sit in that chair right there. Bob Johnson's the chief of staff. Byrd is the director of operations. And then what you have is back all around the back wall over there, all the various staff directorates who would be here, and there would be a representative from all of them here at any given time. What you have up here is we would generally have 3 or 4 different maps. So one map is the ground operations.
What's this?
This is the location of all the friendly forces. So we'd have the location of all the friendly troops where they were located. Over here would generally be the intelligence map where we'd have the location of all the enemy forces. And this constantly changes. You sit here in front of you, and as the situation changes, it's posted.
Red phone for the president?
Red phone, well, the red phone, normally for Colin Powell, but I can talk hotline to Colin Powell, hotline to Secretary of Defense, or for that matter, hotline to the White House if I need to.
Did you talk to the president often?
No, not often. He called me. I've talked to him, I guess, 3 times since I've been over here.
How often did you talk to Colin Powell?
Every single day. At least, I would say at least once a day, but sometimes it was 3 and 4 and 5 times a day. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a tactical radio system, and on this radio system, I could talk right down to the tactical commanders in the field if need be.
Who is this little fellow?
That's a bear. That's the baby grizzly bear. That's the baby grizzly bear.
He lives here?
He lives here. This has been his spot since he took up that position on the day that we started the strategic bombing campaign, and has never left that spot since. This was a gift to me from my sister for Christmas. Would you like to see him work?
Yes, sir. Is that the way you sound, General, when you're really giving orders?
Any resemblance is purely coincidental. I want you to know that.
I should ask you, is that the way you sound?
Be careful how you answer that, Bert. Remember, you could be over here a long time, Bert, right?
Norman Schwarzkopf not only talks tough, he is. Tough as nails, say those who work with him. But I discovered a vulnerable side, too, to this veteran soldier. When we sat down to talk, my very first question evoked an emotional response. General, you have 2 daughters and a young son. What did you say to your 13-year-old son when you left to come here and begin a war?
I got the family together. They didn't have any idea I'd be leaving as soon as I would. As a matter of fact, I think they really thought, because Central Command has been run from Tampa, Florida, I think that in their minds, they thought that I was going to be running this whole thing from Florida. So they didn't really know when I was going to be leaving. But a couple of days before it was time to leave, I got the whole family together. And I just told them that what was going to happen. I told them it was my job, that I was proud to be doing it. I wanted them to understand why, and I wanted them to be proud of me for doing it. And that was it.
You miss them a lot, I can tell.
Yeah, I do.
Take me back the first night that our bombs were sent to Baghdad. Where were you? What were you doing? What were you feeling?
We, of course, knew what time the first shots would be fired, 20 minutes to 3 in the morning. Knew exactly who was going to fire them. And so I assembled the staff downstairs at 2:30 in the morning in the war room. Chaplain was there. Had the chaplain say a little prayer for the protection of our servicemen and women. And then we played Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA. And we did. Anybody who knows me knows that I love that song. But that was sort of what it was all about. And then we just said, okay, now let's go to work. And at 20 minutes to 3, we got the reports that the first shots had been fired, and that started it.
I know this is a strange question to ask a general, but were you ever scared?
Sure.
When most?
I've been scared in every war I've ever been in.
What was Saddam Hussein's biggest mistake?
His predictability.
His predictability? I always thought he was so unpredictable. Everybody says we don't know him, we don't know what makes him do things.
We studied the Iran-Iraq campaigns very, very carefully, and based upon the Iran-Iraq campaigns, we came up with a lot of assumptions of what they would do, and we weren't wrong a single time.
By the way, General, what do you think is going to happen to those Iraqi planes in Iran?
I think they're going to stay there.
So if Saddam Hussein is as predictable as you said, why did Saddam Hussein send those planes to Iran?
Well, I don't think he did. My feeling is that they went to Iran and got a gentleman's agreement, for what that's worth, to send their commercial airplanes over there. So their commercial airplanes all flew over to Iran and were safe. I think the first group of pilots that went over there with their military aircraft recognized very quickly that they were take off and die if they fought us, and therefore they said, well, gee, if these other airplanes are going over there, we can scoot on over there also. I think that's probably what started the floodgates open.
And they're going to stay there.
I don't think there's any question about that.
General, how do you feel about the American armchair television analysts who fought the war for us every day with maps? Truth.
Most of them were a joke. Most of them, and a lot of them are my friends, so I don't want to give the wrong impression, but you know, some of the analysis that you heard was ludicrous. They didn't know what was going on. They didn't have the facts at hand, and they were talking about stuff that it didn't make any sense. Some of them I resented. I resented the fact that they had served in our military and received military training for a great number of years, and then they were using that military training to guess openly on television what I was going to do, what we were going to do over here, on a program that they knew very well was being monitored by the enemy. I find that's difficult for me to reconcile in my sense of values, why anyone would do that. There were some that were very good, and I don't want to get into names, okay, but there were some that I thought were very helpful in their analysis. They were careful to, I think, explain to the American public what was going on, but they were not going beyond that point to predict what was going to happen or to predict the reasons why, so on and so forth.
When in the middle of the war, you looked up on your television screen and you saw Peter Arnett at CNN and other reporters in Baghdad, tell me how you felt. Was that helpful? Was that harmful? Did it bother you? It's something that's still a matter of controversy in our country.
When Peter Arnett first started making his broadcasts from Baghdad, it didn't bother me a bit. Subsequently, there was a lot of resentment on my part and on the part of my entire staff, and that's when the broadcast turned to the Iraqis running the team out, showing them a civilian target that had been heavily bombed and said, you see there, the implication was almost as if we were lying to the American people when we were saying that we were deliberately trying not to target civilian targets. And that resulted in a great deal of resentment on the part of myself and my staff, because, of course, they didn't run out and say, here's military targets that have been totally destroyed, or here's a military. It was all, the implication that was there that we were deliberately doing that kind of thing, and that was resented by every member of my headquarters, because it simply was not a true picture of what was going on. And please don't misunderstand. I have great respect for Peter Arnett, and I have great respect for the press and the American people's right to know. But there was something about that that still bothers me a great deal.
General, take us to that meeting with the Iraqi generals. We all saw the pictures. We haven't heard that much about it. I want to know how you felt when you saw these generals. What did you say to them? Were there any surprises? Take us to that tent.
Let me tell you what happened before that, because it had a bearing. We flew into Kuwait to land, and because you fly obviously into the wind, all the black smoke was blowing directly at the airplane, and we descended into this black smoke where you couldn't see anything. And then suddenly I was looking out the window, and you could just make the ground out, and there were these huge balls of fire. And I was totally unprepared for the scene. And the first thing that flashed through my mind is if I ever visualized what hell would look like, this is it.
These are the oil fields burning?
Yeah, this is the oil fields that were burning. This is south of Kuwait City now. And it was so senseless. I mean, it absolutely was senseless destruction. By every definition, I mean, it would accomplish nothing. And so by the time I landed at Safwan, now I was angry. I mean, I thought, why would anybody do something like this? You know, it really was a sense of anger at this senseless destruction. And but it was very important, I felt, that whatever we did, this discussion should not be one of humiliation. I'm not too sure what they expected, because when they arrived, they were, of course, in their not their full dress uniforms, but they were in dress uniforms with shoulder, boards on and their ribbons and all this sort of business, and they got out, and I was standing there like this, and
your Sunday best.
Yeah, my Sunday best. I mean,
you were clean. I mean,
clean. Yeah, I'd showered the night before, shaved. But I had a young American interpreter who went to the general, and we'd already decided that everyone who went in that tent would be searched electronically, and the general didn't think too much of that idea. And then I told the Air Force major to tell him, well, that's all right, but that's what was going to happen anyhow, and that I would be the first one to be searched. And he immediately looked at me and said, well, the only person that's going to search me is my counterpart. We said, what do you mean by your counterpart? And he said, the person that's going to negotiate. And I said, I'm the person that's going to negotiate. And the guy, he kind of looked down at my boots, and then he looked up at me again, and he looked down, and he said, well, who are you? And I said, I'm General Schwarzkopf. And this transpired, and he said, oh, all right.
He hadn't even seen your picture?
I don't know whether he'd seen my
You're
picture.
Not famous in
but
Baghdad?
I apparently am not famous in Baghdad. But it was just sort of funny that I think that he didn't expect the guy to be out there in the same uniform that all the rest of the troops were in, to be the person that was going to be negotiating, or not negotiating, but discussing with him.
I understand that the one place that they were surprised was when you gave them the number of the Iraqi POWs.
They had said, we are now ready to give you the numbers, and we said, fine, and he said, we have 41 POWs, and he gave us a breakdown by country, and he interrupted me. He said, would you mind telling us how many prisoners you have? And I said, well, as of last night, we had 60,000, but we're still counting. And the entire delegation, you could just see there was a sense of they all kept a poker face, but you could tell that every one of them just immediately tensed.
Do you think that they knew then that they really were defeated when Saddam Hussein was still saying, this is a glorious war, we have fought valiantly, we have won? I mean, did it sink in?
Very early on, they tried to say that they were withdrawing, that they had voluntarily withdrawn, but I wasn't about to accept that at that point. I just said, I just said, you know, we could probably argue from now until sunset as whether or not what you were doing was withdrawing, and then therefore we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss the arrangements that will make sure that we continue to cease the offensive. So let's get on with that, and you know, I don't want to discuss that.
If you could meet Saddam Hussein, what would you ask him or say to him?
Get out of town.
More of General Schwarzkopf when we return, his anguish over Vietnam, why he hates being called Stormin' Norman, and his plans for the future. Stay with us.
Saddle to welcome you back with open arms on your side.
Hi, I'm John Clark. When it comes to consumer goods and services, I'm in your corner. Join me for Consumer Corner on Channel 2 News at 6.
The men and women of Desert Storm are beginning to come home. When will General Schwarzkopf be returning? Well, not for at least another month, he told us. He said he still has troops in the field. The general, who served 2 tours in Vietnam, is a 4-star general. In American history, only 5 men have become 5-star generals. Home for the general these days is a small, cramped room that contains a bed and a desk separated by a screen, and that's about it. It didn't take us very long for this private tour. So here is part 2 of our interview with the general.
This is home sweet home for the last 2 months.
This palatial, teeny-weeny room?
This is it. This room was bare when we started, except for the maps and the desk and the furniture, of course, and everything in here, you see, has been something that someone has sent me.
Why a camouflage cover on the bed?
My entire first tour in Vietnam, I spent wrapped up in one of these. That's called a poncho liner. I don't like to sleep with a heavy quilt, and so I had the poncho liner, and we threw it on, and it's just sort of been there ever since.
How much sleep did you get on an average in this bed?
Some nights 4 hours a night downtime, and some nights, you know, you might be lucky and get 5 or 6, but most of the time it was about 4 hours, really. This is a piece of Iraq.
Iraq itself?
Iraq itself.
Someone sent it to you?
Yeah, this unit, I visited this unit the other day, and they brought this out with them on the 4th of March when they came out, and they wanted me to have a piece of Iraq, so that's...
So now you do.
So now I have a piece of Iraq. That entire box of tapes was sent by someone who found I like classical music, and they recorded all their favorite tapes and sent them to me. It really has been wonderful. I get about 150 letters a day.
Do you answer them?
Oh, everyone.
Now you're going to get more. Is it true that you're getting romantic proposals?
I've had a few.
Oh, I see. You don't want to discuss them? You want Brenda maybe watching?
No, I don't think Brenda has anything to worry about. I don't think Brenda has anything to worry about.
And these 2 beauties are your daughters?
This is Cindy and Jessica.
They are really beautiful girls, aren't they?
Well, thank you. Thank you. And that's Christian.
Christian. Your dad?
No, he passed away in 1958.
Your father was a major general. Do you think about him at all now?
Yeah, I probably thought about him more since I've been over here than I have in many, many years. I mean, many times I've just thought that, you know, if he was looking at me now, you know, I knew he'd be proud.
You know, there are certain questions I ask you, like about your father, and the tears come to your eyes.
I didn't know it showed.
The old picture of generals. Generals don't cry. Generals don't get tears in their eyes.
Sure they do.
They just didn't admit it?
Oh, I think they admitted it. Grant, after Shiloh, went back and cried. Sherman went back and cried. I mean, these are the tough old guys. Lee cried at the loss of human life, at the pressures that were brought to bear. Lincoln cried. I don't, and frankly, any man that doesn't cry scares me a little bit. I don't think I would like a man who was incapable of enough emotion to get tears in his eyes every now and then. That type of person scares me. That's not a human being.
Why do you dislike being called Stormin' Norman?
Stormin' Norman tends to portray someone who just goes around and raises hell all the time and just kicks everybody around and has no sensitivity at all. And I think that's why I don't like it. I know that's why I don't like it. I have a temper. I will freely admit to that. I'm not proud of it. I don't like myself when I lose my temper. But I wear my heart squarely on my sleeve. I believe I owe it to everyone to let them know when I don't like something. But I don't carry a grudge. I do not browbeat my staff. I do not drive people into the ground. I'm not a total martinet. I'm a human being, and Storm and Norman portrays something that's you know, somebody that's mad all the time and raising hell all the time, and that's not me.
Do you think we should have compulsory military service?
I think we should have compulsory national service. I think that it's a wonderful thing to be an American. We should all want to do something for the privilege of being able to call ourselves American. And I'm not saying it has to be in the military. There's the environment, there's the national parks, there's the hospitals, there's 1,000 different ways all of us can do something.
General, there's probably not one soldier who came back from Vietnam the same as he went. And you have talked in the past about Vietnam. How did Vietnam change you?
I was probably a lot more happy-go-lucky before Vietnam and after. And that's because I came to understand that carelessness and negligence and lousy leadership and self-serving officers and generals cost human lives. And you just can't forgive that. You cannot forgive that sort of crassness. People who are more concerned with their ambition than they are with their troops is unforgivable to me. And again, you're supposed to be able to forgive everything. I can't forgive that. I cannot forgive that.
You said recently in an interview that you were forced to lie about the number of casualties in Vietnam.
Sure.
Is this why you have been careful or been unable to give the number of casualties in this war because you don't want to, I don't know what, make that kind of mistake or give that kind of misinformation?
Barbara, there was a terrible erosion in integrity in the armed forces during Vietnam. I don't think that many of us came out of Vietnam and could hold our heads up and say, my sense of integrity is still lily white and pure, because we all know that we had lied about body count. We all knew that there had been a lot of other lies. And it did bad things to the officer corps. But it's a different officer corps today. It's an officer corps that has learned from that experience. But when we went into this thing, I was bound and determined that we were going to tell it like it was. Absolutely tell it like it was.
General, you came home from Vietnam after the second tour, and you said people spit at you.
Oh, no. Nobody ever spit at me. And I can assure you, had they, there would have been an immediate reckoning. But they did spit at a lot of people in military uniform.
Okay.
Excuse me, but I just...
No, I'm glad you cleared it up.
Nobody was going to spit at me.
No.
Nobody.
Now I'm seeing the temper.
No,
But you know what I'm getting at.
Sure.
After Vietnam, did you ever think of resigning from the Army?
Oh, yeah. Sure. I've thought about resigning from the Army before Vietnam a lot of times, too.
Why didn't you quit after Vietnam?
There were a lot of things that needed to be fixed. And if you quit and ran away from it, then you know, that's not the time to quit, not when everything's broken. The time to quit is when everything's fixed.
Oh, boy, what an opening. When you go home, first of all, do you have any idea what people think of you at home? You're going to come home such a hero.
But I'm not a hero. And that's important. It's important to me. The people... I've said this before, and I don't want to keep repeating myself. It doesn't take a hero to order men into battle. It takes a hero to be one of those men that goes into battle, and those are the people that are heroes. Those are the people that should receive the adulation.
Well, Let's hope they do as well. You're going to have a lot of choices. Now, if you had your druthers, would you really like to retire? Because this summer, supposedly, you're 35 years or up and you could retire.
I'd planned for a long time to retire this summer. I've been at this business for 39 years. You know what I really want to do?
Yeah.
There's bound to be a great cause out there that can use a tired old retread general to serve it. To serve, you know, there's bound to be a cause, whether it's the, you know, the conservation, the environment, the wildlife. I'm a great believer in educational exchange. Young people
So
from
you'd like
one
to be
country.
the head of a big organization, non-profit organization.
Well, it doesn't have to be big.
Little non-profit organization. You're not going to make a lot of money doing that.
Well, I would. Yeah, I've got 3 kids to put through college. I wouldn't mind making a little money too. Believe me, you don't get rich in the Army. I can assure you that.
Would it mean a great deal to be a 5-star general, should that happen?
I can't even begin to visualize myself as a 5-star general. When I think of the people who are 5-star generals, I can't even see myself standing in their shadow. And I mean that very seriously. You know, it would be a magnificent honor. I mean, it would be an honor that surpasses anyone's dreams. But I don't see it. I really don't.
Are you a Republican or a Democrat, sir?
I'm an independent. I've always been.
Either side can draft you?
No, that may be neither side can draft me. Maybe that's
Florida has been talking, or people in Florida have been talking about the possibility of your running for the Senate. You could serve that way. That would be a way of continuing service to the country. I'm serious now. Would you think of that?
I'm not too sure I'm cut out to be a politician. And I'd rather not get into all the you know, but I can't say never, okay? I mean, if there were some, again, if there was a calling, but I certainly, right now, I don't know where to go from here except to say that right now I have absolutely no political ambition at all.
General, you've talked to your troops here. Would you like to say something to the families at home about these men and women?
Well, let me say something about the families. The military family is just as much of a hero as the troops are. And people don't realize it, but if you love a soldier, if you love a sailor, if you love a Marine, if you love an airman, you're going to sacrifice a lot. People don't realize how much they sacrifice. So all I want to say to the families is thanks for loving us.
And thank you, General. And thank all of your men and women for serving us. We'll have some thoughts of the General at the close of the program. Now, when we come back, a public relations disaster.
NBA's Galaxy of Stars will be on stage at the Charlotte Coliseum for the All-Star Weekend, February 8th through 10th. The top 100 players in the NBA are on the ballot, and you can team up the best in the West to take on the greats from the East. Ballots are available at all NBA arenas and at participating Miller Genuine Draft retail outlets. Welcome back to the Prudential Halftime Report. Among the most intriguing stories of the preseason was the one coming out of Denver. And we've got 3 guys here who have plenty to say about Coach Paul Westhead's hyperball system. But first of all, since Westhead won a world championship with the Lakers before being succeeded by Pat Riley, who won 4 more, we'll let Riley make the case for Coach Paul Westhead.
Watching a Nuggets game this season may look something like this, because if the preseason is any indication, they'll be scoring and allowing points at a pace the NBA has never seen before. The reason, the Nuggets' new coach, Paul Westhead. His Loyola team led the NCAA in scoring the last 3 years, playing a frantic run-and-gun game that Westhead is now trying to bring to the pro ranks.
Fast break basketball, where we want to create a good shot within 4 or 5 seconds or less.
But the system just wasn't clicking in the preseason. The Nuggets won only 2 of 8 contests and allowed a mind-boggling 164 points a game, leaving skeptics all over the league.
The teams move the ball on them and get it up court. They get layups all night long. There's no way I can see them playing that way all year. They're going to be dead before All-Star break.
It's pretty freewheeling. You know, I haven't played in a game that's been that freewheeling since I've been in the NBA. You know, I'm not 100% sure exactly what Paul's trying to accomplish.
But Westhead is sticking firmly to this fast-breaking style, where practices take on an added importance. His unorthodox procedures even include sprinting in place in a pool, as Westhead seems to pride himself on being unconventional.
I mean, see, if you just play nice and conservative and drop back and, you know, play hands up Harry or whatever, you never look bad, but you never win.
The NBA is about, you know, excitement, slam dunks, getting the ball down the court. That's what we provide. What we have to do is just try to get the things working more in our advantage. You know, hopefully be a part of the first 200-point game with us having 200, another team having 170.
In spite of the Nuggets' apparent convictions, the purists of the game still have their doubts.
It does create exciting basketball, but unless the scoring and the excitement is coupled with a big W at the end of the game, it's going to turn the fan off much quicker and becomes more of a bore, frankly, than a hard-fought, low-scoring 98 to 100 game.
What I'm trying to put in place here in Denver, I know works. So it might look like it's a mad scientist at work, but you know, I found the formula. I mean, so I know that this formula works.
All right, Coach, is there a method to his madness?
I don't think there's any doubt, Bob. It's not an offensive question. I think it's a great offense. The defense might have to be tweaked a little bit, and I think he'll learn more about that as, you know, the season progresses. However, I do believe Paul probably is more concerned about the state of mind. He told his players that, hey, it's going to be tough early, you're probably going to get beat quickly, and it's not going to be much fun, you'll be criticized, and I think they're going to have to deal with that aspect first, so psychologically, he is emphasizing his game.
Well, Pat, I think he's going to have to worry about the state of mind and the owners and the fans if he's going to get beat by 30 points every game early in the year. And it's really going to come down, I think, how he can blend that with defense. How many points he's going to get off his defense to make that offense go.
In truth, though, the differential was shrinking. They only went 2 and 6 in the preseason, so they weren't winning many, and they did lose last night, but only by 4. So even though the scores are high, he's not losing by 40 or 50 points like he was at the beginning.
If you practice something long enough, you're going to get better at it. Again, he's got to keep his players confident in the philosophy that he has. But I think if you give pro players enough possessions, more possessions than they're used to, they're going to kill you every time.
He should not read Peter Vestey's column on Monday or Tuesday, that's all. They tell the players not to read his column in USA Today.
Are you cranking up? Are you going to fire off a few rounds on Westhead
No,
on
I'm
Monday?
giving him at least 2 weeks.
All right. But then, all bets are off. We're back after this message and a word from your local station.
Today, we have a special visitor. It's Rudolph Verkushny. He's going to play classical piano with Mr. Robinson. See, Mr. Verkushny's a better piano player than Mr. Robinson. But Mr. Robinson can really cream him at basketball. Foul! Yes! Tonight, a parenthood to make you squeal. A killer meal. Kids with appeal.
This is so much cooler than cartoons.
Parenthood, comedy you can feel. And birds do it, bees do it, but will these two ever?
Oh, Mommy, I need you.
Working It Out, followed by Golden Girls and Empty Nest on NBC tonight.
Forget the fridge, because it's back. The Domino's Pepperoni Pizza Feast is back for only $7.99. More pepperoni and extra cheese for just $7.99. And another one for only $4 more, but only for a limited time. So call now.
It's time for Domino's Pizza.
Buy one medium pan or original pepperoni pizza feast for only $7.99 and get another for just $4 more. Call Domino's Pizza now.
Here's a great gift idea from Walgreens that speaks for itself.
6 divided by 2 equals 3.
In its talking mode, it's a great teaching tool for children. In its silent mode, it has all the power mom or dad needs to handle the family finances. A great gift for only $24.99 at Walgreens.
Look what's free at Walgreens. A second set of 4 by 6-inch Good as Gold color prints. Free $1.99 value album, too. Next day, next door. From Walgreens.
I'm Dan McDaniel, and I'm for the family.
Welcome back to San Antonio, Texas. Lakers lead the Spurs at halftime by the score of 60-54. Marv Albert along with Mike Fratello and Steve Jones. And Mike, you take a look back at this first half. Aside from the scoring exploits of James Worthy, who's the high man with 23, and Sean Elliott has 12, the Lakers have been able to maintain the dominance despite the fact that Magic Johnson was not a factor in that half.
They shot the ball extremely well. We have to give Sean Elliott a lot of credit. He has played Magic extremely well. But like Magic told, the bottom line is to win. Any way we have to do it, we'll get it done.
Elliott seems to be occupying Magic in the first half. Let's take a look at the shooting percentages. Lakers had the hot hand, 21 for 39 for just under 54%. While the Spurs at 47 on 22 for 47. That despite Sidney Green 0 for 6 and Reggie Williams 1 for 7.
Those percentages are even more impressive when you realize that there have been a combined total of 11 block shots already in this first half, 6 by the Lakers and 5 by the Spurs. Normally that brings the shooting percentages down, so that shows you how well both teams are shooting the ball.
David Robinson with 3 of the block shots. Robinson 4 for 5 from the floor, 10 points in all. Let's go to Steve Jones.
All right, Larry, I never thought I'd see a North Carolina guy do another North Carolina guy in. Worthy hurt you in that first half. What kind of defense are you going to play on him?
Well, if they're going to make every jump shot, Steve, we're going to lose. I mean, that's what I told the guys. We just got to keep plugging. I almost put you in the game. We had to improvise with our bench. As long as they shoot jumpers, we got a chance. If they make them all, we're not supposed to win.
All right, how about David Robinson? You got to try to get him more involved in the second half offensively.
Yeah, I told our guys, we got so many crazy lineups, nobody knows who's supposed to be back, so we got to make the extra pass. And every time we've thrown it into him just about, he's either scored, got fouled, or got it to somebody, and we got to direct the ball there.
All right, I got to direct it over to Marv. Back to you.
All right, the one-time Carolina Cougar and a man who played for Larry Brown with the Cougars, Steve Jones. 6-point Laker lead. We'll be right back.
If I owned a car company, first I'd snag the biggest office, then build myself a sports sedan. I'd make the body aerodynamic, like even the door handles would be cool. Then I'd give it a 16-valve engine. And just to cheese off the other car companies, I'd make my sports sedan affordable. Because I'm tired of the rich guys having all the fun.
Introducing the all-new Nissan Sentra, the first affordable sports sedan.
They were the hope of every American.
Hi, Babylonia and Randy Gardner.
With a shot at an Olympic dream.
I feel like a piece of public property.
Want to get back out there and skate.
But behind all the glitter...
It's just everyone win, win, win.
Drives me to showgirl's secret.
...was the heartbreaking truth.
She wanted to die, Mom.
Based on the real story of one woman's will to win.
The only one who can change things is you.
On Thin Ice, the Ty Babylonia story on NBC Monday.
LA, KC, and Bo. No, Bo. Sunday.
The Lakers have led by as many as 14 on 3 occasions. The last time it was 51-39.